In this video, we'll discuss the features on Ben Shapiro's face that point to conviction in his beliefs, as well as a capacity for criticality of the external world. Enjoy. Welcome back, everybody. For today's face reading, we are looking at Ben Shapiro. So Ben Shapiro is a right-wing political commentator, very prominent, very well-known, very controversial. So I've wanted to read his face for a while because he's got very dominant features in a few key areas that hold true to face reading theory. So anytime I read someone political, I always try to stress to people, especially nowadays, where I would say political leanings are very contentious, way more than when I was growing up. I was born in 81. I'm 44. My birthday weekend this weekend. Been a great weekend, by the way. But in my day, people that were Democrat, Republican could have dinner together. They could agree to disagree, but still be friends. Now, not so much. So what I always say to people is conservatives now I would say they're looked at in a much harsher light. They get a lot more shit, I would say, than the left does. It's not good or bad. It's just I feel like fluctuations of yin and yang. It's kind of the way it goes. So that being said, looking at Ben Shapiro's face, the thing I want to say about political people is that political people that are very polarizing, they have a place in reality. Just the way people that are leaning the opposite way, people that are very strongly left, very strongly right, people that are very masculine, very feminine, light or dark, however you want to categorize it, oppositional forces. Okay, yin-yang theory states we need both. So with political figures, I always like to say is these people have a place, okay? Whether you lean left or right or you're somewhere in the middle, maybe you're libertarian or independent or whatever, but everyone has a spot. And it's about how they express their ideas, what their face holds, and that's the name of the game with face reading and Eastern philosophy. You got to pay attention to that. Is try not to see people that are different than you as enemies. They might see reality differently, but it doesn't mean they're explicitly toxic, bad, or evil. So I'm not here to defend Shapiro. I'm not here to be pro or against. I really try to stay neutral with face reading, and I'm going to do my best to do the same here. So let's talk about the key dominant features. First and foremost, the eyebrows. Homeboy has some very, very dominant eyebrows. If you've watched my content, you'll know that the eyebrows are all about the wood element. The wood element is about vigor, tenacity, drive, aggression, going after things, having the capacity to finish. So they say this in the sexual context in face reading that people with strong wood features typically have lasting power in bed. Fiery people, usually, if they have more fire features, they're kind of faster in bed. But the wood is like what is long-standing. So outside of the sexual context, what they're getting at is a person who has strong wood features will typically, usually, really fight for what they believe in. And when you see really strong eyebrows, that's what it points to. Someone who is willing to argue, debate, push their point, and really drive it home and do it with conviction and with vigor. Ben Shapiro holds true to this. So if you've listened to him, whether you love him or hate him, he really argues his points, and he's very forceful about it. Forceful isn't bad. That's the thing to remember. Forceful is necessary at certain stages in human evolution, and I would say that very strong, powerful voices on the left or right or in the middle are relevant. You got to listen to them. Try to find common ground. You might disagree fully, right? I mean, we can all listen to political people and be like, what the hell is this person talking about? But you have to understand yin and yang. Yin is dark with the white speck. Yang is light with the dark speck. Oppositional forces that really point to, they carry the seed of their opposites. So what that's pointing to in the yin-yang symbol, the little speck of white and the little speck of black is saying the seed of the opposite is in both. And that's why no matter how polarizing things look, no matter how much you think things are in opposition to you and how you see things, you've got to look at it and say, there's something that's the same about us. And that is where harmony happens. When you go into the territory of, it's all light, it's all dark, with no nuance, that's a problem. So, all of that being said, let's talk about Ben Shapiro, the eyebrows. Vigor, drive, tenacity, willing to argue the point. Ben Shapiro holds true to this. He's definitely got this. Now, the other thing I noticed about him were the squinty eyes. So certain political figures will have kind of squinty eyes. When we see the eyes a bit squinty, what that's pointing to is scrutiny, criticality, attention to detail, looking at the small, tiny details, a person who is statistically oriented. They will cite statistics. They will cite numbers and say, hey, here's the logical framework. Logic has its place. So does emotion. Order and chaos. Order goes with logic. Chaos goes with emotion. So, again, you want to pay attention to this. When we see the squeezing eyes, the portal to the mind or the spirit are like this a little bit. When they're squinty like that, there is a closing of the aperture. You can think of it as a laser beam condensing. The light that comes out of the eyes is going to penetrate outward a bit more, which means they're going to look to the outside world for details that confirm their position. When the eyes are more open, like mine, we're a little more receptive. We're a little more open, and we're looking towards the nuance and the sensitivity and the feeling to understand reality. One does not supersede the other. People get really hung up on this, like logical people suck or emotional people suck. It's like, no. They fit as a piece of the puzzle in a larger scheme of life. So with Ben Shapiro, though, those squinty eyes, we're really going to see that really sharp criticality here. So if you listen to this man, whether you love him or hate him, the man can debate. He's got facts. He's got statistics. He's got all these things to back up his position. And are there pitfalls to that? Of course. Always the case with anything. Same with going on the emotional side. But he's got these really strong features that point to that. Now, he's also got pretty sizable dimples. Dimples are attention markers. This is a person who handles attention well, likes to have their voice be heard, is good in front of a camera, typically, or in the context of being extroverted. They're very good that way. They're going to have a lot of attention towards them. They digest it well. So he's got these, and him being, on television, YouTube, on the news, all of that very much fits to where he operates, I would say, in the larger picture. So outside of that, squinty eyes, dominant eyebrows, we're seeing this criticality with that strong wood energy, vigor, drive, tenacity to go after what they believe in. Now, the other thing that's interesting about his face is that Ben Shapiro collectively, he smiles with the left side of his face more. So in a lot of his pictures, you'll see where he smiles, the right side, the public persona, okay, his right, your right, that's your public persona side, it's a bit more muted. The left side, a little more twinkle, a little more, excuse me, a little more sparkle, I would say, on his left side. That's the interpersonal side. So what that points to in his context, according to face reading theory, is that he enjoys what he's doing. There's a little bit of like mischief in that look as well. His face definitely has the mischief, and that kind of points me into the Shen department. Shen is the consciousness, the anima. Some people have very watery constitutions where their face just looks like it carries deep wisdom. Some people are very direct and firm looking, and they look like they want to whoop your ass, but they've got a hard message to send. And there's people like Ben Shapiro, which has kind of a mixture of fire and wood, which is sort of a direct, forthright message, but also with someone who's willing to stir some shit, who's willing to say what they want and what they think and what they feel, and they're willing to get into it to stir the pot a bit. So again, people like this play a role in society. You got to listen to people that you disagree with. That's really important in the big picture of life, because yin and yang says both sides need each other. If you go with that theory, light and dark, night needs day just the way day needs night. They need each other. Birth and death, right? They coexist. So Ben Shapiro's got that, but there's that look of mischief. I think about the Thor series, Loki, the god of mischief, getting in there and be like, I'm going to throw some shit on the walls and see what people say. Ben Shapiro definitely plays to this. So when I was looking at his face, these were like the key things that really stood out to me. I've wanted to read him for a long time, but I thought he's the type of person where you can see the features on the face really pointing to how the theory holds true. And again, form and function relate. If a human being exists, they have a voice. Whether we love them or hate them, no matter how much we think of them as low or high, we want to pay attention to that. The vibration, the relative relationship we have with a person when we're looking at their face is going to be different for everybody. This is why when I do a face reading, I'm also reading through my lens. My lens is cultivated. I've attempted over the years to keep it neutral and central, but you have to pay attention to this. We're all going to see it a little bit differently, and everyone's voice matters, and how you see it matters. That's the big takeaway. Same holds true for Ben Shapiro. Same thing holds true for Gavin Newsom. Any person, left, right, their voice has meaning, and you should listen and try to learn from it. That's the big takeaway. So, in looking at Ben Shapiro, these were the key highlight themes. And the last one that I'll point on is his forehead. So I found this photo where he's got his forehead wrinkled a bit, right? Where the brow is furrowed a bit. So he does have some connected forehead lines, and there's also some disconnection. Some of the lines don't totally link up, which means in his mental sphere, there are likely, what face reading theory will say is that the person might have a very logical framework, but there's also some discrepancies internally that they struggle with. So what I think about in the context of Ben Shapiro, one of his famous lines is, facts don't care about your feelings, right? And it's like, true, fair enough. Facts are hard data. They're hard points. And he's also a deeply religious man. You could argue very easily whether you're religious or not, whether you're atheist or spiritual, it doesn't really matter. But you can definitely argue that, that line of facts don't care about your feelings. It's like, well, in theory, the feeling about God and about the ether and about the unknown is definitely a feeling. That's the nature of faith. So Ben Shapiro holds this line pretty hard. Facts don't care about your feelings. It's like, but also you're a guy who fully believes in something that cannot be proven, which is basically a faith-based, feeling-based orientation to reality. So his forehead definitely points to that. There's some discrepancy in terms of how he thinks about things. Again, not good or bad, kind of just what is. So, in any case, this is what I got for Ben Shapiro. And you guys can see I'm in Fort Bragg for my birthday. Christopher Reeve last year, I was sitting in the exact same place. I kind of like coming back and doing these things. But that's my reading for today. If you guys have any questions, please put them down below. And as always, thanks for your time.